Good evening from New York. 72 hours now since a Tea Party-backed eye surgeon won the Republican nomination for the Kentucky Senate seat. And not only has he come out in favor of allowing private businesses to discriminate based on skin color, not only has it been revealed that he opposes both the Fair Housing Act and the Americans with Disabilities Act. This morning, in our fifth story in the countdown, Rand Paul calling any pressure that the Obama administration is putting on oil behemoth BP, quote, un-American, summarizing the unfolding, unmitigated ecological disaster BP has created in 3 words. Sometimes accidents happen. Dr. Paul continuing to discover that the ideological purity of his abstract principles are no match for the real world, complaining to George Stephanopoulos on ABC this morning that the real world is not giving him his due.
When does my honeymoon period start? I had a big victory. I thought I got a honeymoon period from you guys in the media.
This is your honeymoon period. Dr. Paul's desired political honeymoon over before ever having started because the good doctor, without the good sense to keep to himself the extremist ideas held by many small government conservatives, as when Dr. Paul told the Fox going out of business channel earlier this year that he believes federal agencies should reduce their regulation of the energy industry, which brings us back to this morning and Paul's views on the oil spill. Roll it.
The thing is that, you know, the drilling right now and the problem we're having now is in international waters, and I think there needs to be regulation of that, and always has been. I think there are hundreds of pages of regulation. What I don't like from the president's administration is this sort of, you know, I'll put my boot heel on the throat of BP. I think that sounds really un-American in his criticism of business. I've heard nothing from BP about not paying for the spill, and I think it's part of this sort of blame game society in the sense that it's always got to be someone's fault, and instead of the fact that maybe sometimes accidents happen. I mean, we had a mining accident that was very tragic, and I've met a lot of these miners and their families. They're very brave people to do a dangerous job, but then we come in and it's always someone's fault. Maybe sometimes accidents happen.
BP is doing everything it can to not pay for that spill, and those are not international waters. Sometimes accidents happen. He said it twice. Dr. Paul also failing to give a straight answer as to whether he's stuck by the views he expressed in that remarkable 2002 letter to the editor that he wrote attacking the Fair Housing Act, as well as ducking a question about whether the federal government should be allowed to set a minimum wage.
Well, it's not a question of whether they can or cannot. I think that's decided. I think the question you have to ask is whether or not when you set the minimum wage it may cause unemployment.
Tonight, apparent proof that the Paul campaign now realizing the candidate is not ready for prime time, pulling the full Palin by backing out of an interview scheduled for Sunday on Meet the Press. Only the 3rd time a major guest has canceled on the show in 62 years. Executive producer Betsy Fisher saying the reason cited was exhaustion. A Paul campaign spokesman giving a different reason to Dave Weigel of the Washington Post. Quote, Rand did Good Morning America today, set the record straight, and now we're done talking about it. No more national interviews on the topic. Lots to talk about tonight with our own political analyst, Richard Wolff, author of Renegade. Richard, good evening.
Good evening, Keith.
If the spokesman's right and the doctors set the record straight this morning, what precisely did he set straight for all of us?
Oh, he set a lot straight. You know, as they like to say at BP, this well is not yet dry. And the problem here is not the media, it's not the format, it's not the network. It's the man. It's the man in the microphone. You put the two together and stuff just tumbles out like, I don't know, oil from the bottom of the sea. Here's the issue. If he tries to back away from his positions, as he's done, he's shown he can learn how to play dodgeball. But he has to be like any other old politician. He has to twist the questions about civil rights into repealing civil rights or about Senator Robert Byrd or about the president. His fundamental position hasn't changed. This man's problem is that his ideology trumps his morality, if he has some. So, you know, you put the microphone there, it's going to happen. It's wonderful.
All right, so we have this, if in the Gulf we're getting the equivalent of the Exxon Valdez every 3 days, with a microphone here we're getting the equivalent of Sarah Palin every 3 minutes. But now to dismiss that with this phrase, sometimes accidents happen, as well as to criticize the administration response to this as un-American. Is this, in fact, is Rand Paul representative of what drill baby drill looks like once you actually turn it into a discussion of policy?
For a start, I love the echo of Donald Rumsfeld here. I mean, stuff happens. Iraq blows up and, drills just go wrong and it spreads oil everywhere. This isn't actually really just about drill, baby, drill. It's not about energy policy. There's something much bigger going on. The debate Rand Paul, the Tea Party movement, and folks on this part of the Republican Party want to have is about business versus government. The problem they have is that their party massively skews towards trusting business over government, and the rest of the population sees it the other way around, especially after Wall Street's collapse, especially after what we're seeing with BP. His point of view would leave BP unfettered and businesses to discriminate on the basis of race and Wall Street to do what the hell it likes. That is one point of view. It doesn't actually respect small companies in the Gulf, the fishing industry, the tourism industry. It's an extreme thing that is way out of the mainstream.
There are unknowns about Rand Paul that we know, and there are unknowns about Rand Paul that we don't know. But how about this one? With the cancellation of Meet the Press, is it likely we're not going to hear from Dr. Paul again for a very long time?
Oh, they're saying that they're just going to do Kentucky media and Kentucky issues. The problem is he's running for the United States Senate. Any reporter, and Kentucky is going to be flooded with reporters, any reporter down there or anyone, any voter asking him a question about national politics will be there with a recorder, with a camera. He cannot avoid the questions or the attention anymore.
Are any of the national Republican organizations discussing at this point cutting bait with this guy before he does something else? Because, as you suggest, he'll do something else and somebody will record it.
Well, this is where this story goes from here. People who've expressed support for him in the past are going to get pushed harder and harder. Do they still stand with him? Does Sarah Palin approve of what he thinks of the ADA, of American with Disabilities Act? Is Mitch McConnell going to do anything but have his spokesman put out a statement? That's where this goes from here. So far, they're all either staying quiet or being respectful because, remember, this is a movement that threatens them all.
MSNBC analyst Richard Wolff, the author of Renegade. As always, a great pleasure. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Keith.